Hi, it's Peter Schiff. This is Friday, April 3rd, 2009. Well, we got another horrific job report that came out today. I think the unemployment rate is up to 8.5%. Now, that's the official rate. I think that's the highest since maybe 82 or 3. They're saying that we lost over 5 million jobs now since the beginning of 2008. And I think we've lost over 2 million jobs in calendar 2009. And of course, I don't even think this is telling the whole story. The unemployment rate is actually quite a bit higher than 0.5%. I think there are a lot of Americans who are working time who would much rather have full-time jobs. They're not counted as being unemployed. There are a lot of contractors. There are a lot of realtors who are unemployed. They're independent contractors. They're not making any money. No one's selling any houses, yet they don't count as being unemployed. And I think there are a lot of Americans, because of our labor laws, that now work as independent contractors, and so they can't be unemployed because they were never employed. And so I think it's really a lot worse than what the numbers reveal. Of course, the government wants to pretend that they're going to solve the problem of unemployment with government-created jobs. But the problem with jobs provided by the government is that they're really productive. And in order to employ people at the government level, the government has to take resources from the private sector to support those jobs. Generally, when the government creates jobs, they end up destroying more productive private sector jobs in the process. And of course, we don't want jobs just to work, right? I mean, slaves had jobs. I mean, having a job is not, we want the end result, not productivity. We want to work because of what we produce. So we need productive jobs. We need to make things, and we're not going to get those types of jobs from government. We need to get those types of jobs from the private sector. But unfortunately, what the government is doing, all the bailouts and all the stimulus, is preventing the private sector from getting the capital that it needs to provide the jobs of the future. So meanwhile, as we're losing jobs that were associated with the bubble, the government is interfering and making it more difficult for people who lose their jobs in sectors of our economy, like financial services, like retailing, to get jobs where we need them. We need that labor, where labor has not been effectively used in the past, but where we need to use it, the government is getting in the way. And so what's going to happen, while they're trying to fight the unemployment problem, they actually get worse. Now, maybe they can create some government jobs. The government can point to these new jobs that they created. What they don't point to is all the jobs that were destroyed in the process. And of course, if we're not getting real productivity out of those jobs, all that happens is we get more inflation because the government creates the money to provide the employment. But the employment, we're not producing any real output, so we're not getting any greater productivity. All we're doing is paying more for things that we're buying. And if you look at what happened again with the dollar today, the dollar continues to drift lower. The G20 meeting, I mean, they're making a big deal about all accomplished, but of course, they didn't really accomplish anything. They all agree that they're going to work together to stimulate the economies, but that's all they've always agreed to. That's all they say. It's all for show. But I think behind the scenes, I think the creditor nations at the meeting, countries like China that have been providing the funding so that countries like the United States can keep consuming, I think they are figuring out that they need a change, that they cannot keep moving in this direction. And I think if you look at the data out of China, it's not nearly as bad as people think. Gordon McBean, who works for us in capital markets, just came back to China. He was at a hotel been staying at for years, very busy. He met with about 20, 30 different companies while he was in China. All these companies are extremely busy. They're not necessarily seeing any type of slowdown. So things are really moving forward in other parts of the world, and I think the Chinese are able to function, and they know they're able to function without demand from the United States. There's plenty of demand developing in China itself, parts of the world, and now that we're confronting China with this huge choice, where we're asking them to so dramatically increase the size of their subsidy to the U.S. economy, asking them not just to incrementally increase the number of treasuries they're buying, but to exponentially increase. I think this is the point where they're gonna stop. And I think that the Fed understands this. I mean, that's probably why they've already telegraphed their intention to start monetizing more of our debt. I mean, I don't think the Treasury would be buying $1 trillion worth of debt if they didn't have to. If they could find legitimate buyers outside the states, the government would much rather finance this than monetize it. But we've got no choice. And so what we have to understand is I think that the day of reckoning for the dollar is going to come a lot sooner than people think. We keep coming out with these horrific employment numbers, and as the world starts to realize that the only solution we have is for government to print money and try to provide make work for people who are losing their jobs, and we're not allowing this economy to rebalance. Remember, a lot of these jobs that are in the service sector, these jobs are only there because farmers were lending us money to consume and providing us with the merchandise to buy. But as this phony economy collapses, as Americans realize they don't have the wealth anymore and they don't have the incomes and they can't keep buying, and all the industries that grew up around this dynamic are collapsing and people losing their jobs. And there's nothing to replace it because the government is not allowing capital to be reallocated to areas that would employ these people. And this is similar to what happened in the Great Depression. The government is making it impossible for people to get jobs, and so we're going to have more and more people who are unemployed. And of course, as we build in these social safety nets, we find more and more ways to subsidize people for not getting jobs. Then, of course, we get the moral hazard as well. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll be back again next week.